In 1965, an 18-year-old nursing student was brutally murdered inside her own home in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. The killer left behind a rare ceremonial dagger, one of only 1,000 ever made. Police believed it would solve the case immediately. It did not. For 60 years, her family had no answers. Until a dying serial killer finally confessed. Her name was Alice Eberhart. Alice Eberhart was 18 years old. A nursing student at Hackensack Hospital. A freshman class leader. A Sunday school teacher at her church, not because anyone asked her to, but because giving something back was simply who she was. She carried herself with a quiet grace that made people stop and take notice. Her classmates looked to her. Her family was proud of her in a way that went beyond words. She was on her way somewhere. Anyone could see that. On September 24, 1965, a predator who had been watching her for 2 weeks knocked on the door of her family home with a fake police badge and a story about needing to leave a phone number for her father. She stepped back to let him in. He followed her inside. What happened next was savage, deliberate, and prolonged. She was bludgeoned. She was stabbed. And after she was already dead, he stayed and inflicted 62 additional cuts on her body. Then he slipped out the back door as her father walked in the front. He drove home. And he said nothing for 60 years. If you are new here, subscribe right now and drop a comment telling us where in the world you are watching from. Like this video. Alice Eberhart was invisible for 60 years. Not here. Who she was. Alice grew up in Fair Lawn, New Jersey, a tight-knit Bergen County suburb where front doors were left unlocked and an 18-year-old girl had every reason to feel safe in her own home. She had chosen nursing as a genuine calling, not a career, a vocation. The kind of choice that comes from someone who already understands, at 18, that her purpose is to be present for people in their hardest moments. Her nursing school classmates identified her as a class leader within weeks. She taught Sunday school every week. She moved through the world with a self-possession and grace that made rooms better simply by her being in them. Everyone who knew Alice described the same thing across the decades, that quality, that bearing, that particular way she had of making people feel steadier just by being present. It was the quality that a predator noticed from a parking lot and spent 2 weeks thinking about. The thing that made Alice exceptional was precisely the thing that made her a target. Her dignity, in the mind of someone whose psychology turned feminine self-possession into something to be destroyed, became a reason to pursue her. She was a person, not a case file. Keep that with you. The day she died. Alice left nursing school early on Friday, September 24 because her aunt had died and the family was traveling to Owego, New York for the funeral. Her father would collect her from home that afternoon. She drove back to Fair Lawn, let herself in, and began packing for the trip. She did not know she had been followed. Her killer had first spotted her outside Hackensack Hospital 2 weeks earlier. He described, in his eventual confession, being drawn to how well she carried herself. On the 24th he saw her leaving the hospital parking lot, followed her to a nearby diner, waited, then followed her all the way home. He sat outside, formulated his approach, then walked to the front door with a fake police badge and a story about a phone number for her father. She answered the door. She stepped back inside to let him write it down. He followed her in. The attack that followed was not impulsive. The double skull fracture. The knife left in her neck. The 62 cuts inflicted after she was already gone, what criminologists call a signature, the expression of a psychological need for control that does not end with the killing itself. A signature that would, decades later, become one of the threads connecting this crime to the man who committed it. When Alice's father arrived to pick her up, her killer was still in the house. He heard him at the front door, slipped out the back, and drove away. The 60-year investigation began. The dagger. Investigators found the ceremonial dagger near Alice's body and immediately understood its significance. Sold at the Jordanian Pavilion of the 1964 World's Fair. Only 1,000 ever made. 3 sales locations, all in New York. It seemed impossible that such a rare and traceable object would not lead directly to the killer. It led nowhere. In 1964, World's Fair souvenir booths did not keep records specific enough to identify individual buyers. People paid cash. No names were taken. The dagger, for all its rarity, had entered the world of private ownership without leaving a trail. Alice's father was investigated and cleared. County, state, and federal investigators all worked the case. No suspect was ever identified. The case went cold. But not for Alice's family. Her mother carried the unanswered question for the rest of her life. Her sister raised children, including Alice's nephew Michael Smith, in the shadow of it. 3 generations of a family waiting. And somewhere in New Jersey, the man with the answer lived his life and said nothing. Richard Cottingham. Richard Cottingham grew up in Bergen County, New Jersey, the same county as Fair Lawn, the same county as Hackensack Hospital. To the people who knew him he was completely ordinary. A computer operator at a Manhattan insurance company. A married father in the Bergen County suburbs. A neighbor who waved from the driveway. Underneath that surface he was one of the most prolific serial killers in American history. He claims his first murder came at 16. He was 18 when he killed Alice, the same age as her. By his own account she was among his earliest victims, the beginning of a career that would span 15 undetected years and claim dozens of lives. His arrest came on May 22, 1980, when a maid at a Times Square motel heard a woman screaming from his room and called 911. Investigators found evidence connecting him to at least 5 murders across New Jersey and New York. He had dismembered some victims to prevent identification. He received multiple life sentences. He would never leave prison. For over 20 years he denied everything. Then he began to confess. First to the murders he had been convicted of. Then to others. Then to more. He claims between 85 and 100 murders in total. Since 2010 he has been officially linked to nearly 20, through convictions and immunity agreements. Among the cases he discussed were murders in Bergen County, the same era, the same geography as Alice Eberhart. Reopening the case. In 2021 a former nursing school classmate of Alice's called the Fair Lawn Police Department. She had been following Cottingham's Bergen County confessions in the news. Her question was simple: had anyone looked at him for Alice's case? That call reopened everything. Detective Brian Ripkema and Sergeant Eric Aleshewicz were assigned under Chief Glenn Cowles. They reviewed the original files and studied Cottingham's full history. The geography matched. The time period matched. His pattern of surveilling women, following them, using deception to gain entry, it all fit. And those 62 post-mortem cuts matched his documented signature across multiple confirmed cases. The detectives went to Trenton State Prison. In their second visit, when they described how they believed the perpetrator had entered the house, Cottingham corrected them. He told them it had happened differently. He corrected them using knowledge only the killer would have. According to Aleshewicz, that moment left them with zero doubt. But certainty is not a confession. What followed was 4 years of patient, disciplined prison visits, more than 5 conversations across 4 years, building the kind of ongoing relationship that kept Cottingham engaged and the door open. He talked around Alice's murder for 4 years. Enough to confirm their certainty. Not enough to close the case. Until his health began to fail. If you are still here, drop a comment right now with the words "I am still here." Let us see who is following Alice all the way through. The confession. In late 2025, word reached the detectives that Cottingham was in the medical unit at Southwood State Prison in Bridgeton, New Jersey. He was 79. His health was failing. He asked to see them. They came. 2 final interviews. The second one, December 22, 2025, was the one that mattered. 79-year-old Richard Cottingham looked at the 2 detectives who had been coming to see him for 4 years and made a full verbal confession to the murder of Alice Eberhart. He said he did it. He described how. And he provided details about the crime that had been deliberately withheld from every public record since 1965, details held back specifically so that any future confession could be verified against facts only the killer would know. Cottingham knew every one of them. He later provided a written confession as well. After 60 years, there was an answer. What he said. He had first seen Alice outside Hackensack Hospital 2 weeks before the murder, standing with a group of nursing students. He said he was drawn to how well she carried herself. On September 24 he spotted her leaving the hospital and followed her, to the diner, then to the Eberhart home in Fair Lawn. The fake badge. The story. She let him in. He attacked her around 2:30 in the afternoon. When her father arrived, Cottingham slipped out the back as the father came through the front. He drove away. 18 years old. The same age as Alice. He drove away and lived 60 more years. Alice stayed 18 in the photographs. What came after? Alice was among Cottingham's earliest victims. 15 more years of murder followed before his arrest. Diane Cusick in 1968. Lorraine Marie Kelly and Mary Ann Pryor in 1974. Dozens more. Every one of them might still be alive if the Dagger records had existed in 1965. That is the unbearable truth at the heart of Alice's case, the cost of a dead end that was not anyone's fault but cost the world enormously anyway. The family speaks. On January 6, 2026, the Fair Lawn Police Department officially closed Alice Eberhart's case. 60 years and 3 months after her death. Chief Joseph DeWicki called it a tremendous accomplishment. No new charges would be filed. Cottingham was already serving multiple life sentences and would die in prison regardless. Alice's nephew Michael Smith released a statement on behalf of the family. He said they had waited since 1965 for the truth. He said being able to tell his mother, Alice's sister, now elderly, that they finally had answers was a moment he never thought would come. He thanked the Fair Lawn Police Department for their persistence. He said the closure brought the family a long overdue sense of peace. And then he said this: Richard Cottingham is the personification of evil, yet I am grateful that even he has finally chosen to answer the questions that have haunted our family for decades. Grateful to the personification of evil for finally speaking. That sentence is what 60 years of waiting costs a family, not simple anger, but something harder and more honest than most of us will ever have to feel. Alice Eberhart. She would have been in her late 70s now. A retired nurse. A grandmother. Still carrying herself the way she always did, with that quiet grace that made everyone around her feel steadier just by her being present. That version of Alice never got to exist. It was taken on a September afternoon in 1965 when an 18-year-old girl answered her front door. Her name was Alice Eberhart. She was a nursing student, a class leader, a Sunday school teacher, a daughter, a sister. She was killed by Richard Cottingham on September 24, 1965. He confessed on December 22, 2025. The case was closed on January 6, 2026. 60 years, 2 months, and 13 days. The truth took that long to arrive. It arrived. It matters. And Alice Eberhart will not be forgotten. If Alice's story moved you, like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Cold Case Aftermath so you never miss another story like this one. Every view tells the families of cold case victims that the world has not forgotten. Alice was not forgotten. Not by her family. Not by the detectives who kept going back. And not here. Cold Case Aftermath, because every case deserves a conclusion.